Have you ever wondered why some people command respect the moment they enter a room, without saying a single word? There's something magnetic about quiet strength, something unshakable. You can feel it. It doesn't shout, it doesn't need to. And maybe, deep down, you've always known that kind of power was possible for you too. But in a world that demands noise, attention, and constant performance, it's easy to forget the value of silence, of stillness, of inner control. Maybe you've been told to speak up, to prove yourself, to make people notice you. And maybe, after all that effort, you're still not respected, still overlooked, still underestimated. That's not your fault. It's just the wrong game. Because the truth is, real power never chases respect. It attracts it. Not through words, but through presence. And presence comes from discipline. From mastering your mind when everything inside you wants to react. From staying grounded when others lose control. From choosing to be calm when you could explode. That's what builds a magnetic kind of strength. Not because you're pretending to be in control, but because you are. When you learn to discipline your mind, you stop being ruled by emotions. You stop needing validation. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening in the first place. You stop wasting energy trying to prove your worth because you already know it. And in that silence, people start to notice. They sense the difference, the quiet confidence, the presence that doesn't beg for approval. They feel the energy shift, even if they can't explain it. And without asking, you begin to earn what can't be forced, respect. But this transformation starts with a choice to stop running after the world's attention, a choice to turn inward and build something stronger than image, a choice to develop the kind of mind that doesn't flinch under pressure, that doesn't need noise to feel powerful. Because once you understand that self-control is the highest form of strength, everything changes. You start to move differently. You think before you speak. You observe more, react less. And in that space you become dangerous, not to others, but to the limitations that used to define you. If you stay with this message until the end, you'll understand what most people never do. That mastering your mind and learning to stay quiet is the beginning of true transformation. Not the kind that impresses people for a moment, but the kind that earns lifelong respect. The kind of respect that follows you into every room, every relationship, every challenge, without you needing to say a word. So stay with this. Lean in, because you're not here to be loud. You're here to become unstoppable. And it begins by going quiet, going inward, and reclaiming the power you never lost, just forgot how to access. Discipline your mind, and everything else will follow. Even the respect you thought you had to chase. Unusual activity has been detected from your device. Try again later. 96 B7, C62629, AE 4906 Chi. The noise around you is constant. Everyone trying to speak louder, move faster, be seen more. But what they don't realize is that the louder you become, the less people listen. The more you force attention, the more you push respect away. Because real power is never loud. It is patient, it is focused, it is silent. And the reason most people never feel respected is because they haven't yet mastered the courage to be quiet when their ego screams to be noticed. You don't need to explain yourself to be valuable. You don't need to convince others to see you. You need to train your mind to rise above the need to prove anything at all. That's what separates the few who are respected from the many who are merely heard. Because being heard is temporary, it fades. But being respected, that stays. That lives in the way people think of you long after you've left the room. And it starts with your own mind. Most people let their minds run wild, chasing validation, reacting to every opinion, letting fear dictate decisions. But when you start to discipline your thoughts, everything changes. You begin to control your internal world, and the external world begins to respond differently to you. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about understanding it, channeling it, mastering it. Because the one who can sit in silence without feeling the need to defend or explain, that is the one who holds true power. You will never be able to lead others if you can't lead your own thoughts. You will never gain lasting respect if you don't first respect the power of stillness within yourself. This is why so few ever reach that level. Because it requires doing the hard thing, shutting out the noise, going inward, facing yourself without distraction. It's not easy, but it's where your power is born. When you stop reacting to every word spoken about you, you rise. When you stop rushing to prove your worth, you glow with quiet confidence. And when you stop chasing attention, you begin to command it, without effort, without noise, without even trying. That's the paradox of silence. It says more than words ever could. People are drawn to what they don't understand. When you stop telling the world who you are, and start showing it through discipline, presence, and consistency, something shifts. You become magnetic. Not because you're perfect, but because you're focused. And focus is rare. Silence is rare. Discipline is rare. That's why it's powerful. You don't need to be louder. You need to be stronger. Not in volume, but in presence. Not in aggression, but in control. That's how respect finds you. That's how it follows you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the kind of person who didn't need to ask. You earned it in silence. And now, it's yours. The mind, when left undisciplined, becomes your greatest enemy. It pulls you in 1,000 directions, feeding doubts, replaying failures, and convincing you that you must act out just to be seen. It lies to you. It tells you that silence is weakness, that stillness is surrender. But the truth is, only a weak mind screams to be heard. A strong mind listens. It observes. It waits. It chooses when to speak, and when it does, it speaks with precision, not noise. Every thought you allow, every reaction you choose, is either strengthening or weakening the power you hold. If your mind is constantly chasing external approval, it will never find peace. If it reacts to every opinion, every look, every doubt, it will always remain at war, and you'll keep losing battles that were never worth fighting in the first place. That's what mental discipline frees you from. It gives you control back, not over the world, but over yourself. And when you have control over yourself, nothing outside you can take your peace. Not their words, not their opinions, not their silence. This is where real transformation begins. Not by fixing the world around you, but by mastering the world within you. You stop letting thoughts run wild. You catch them, you challenge them, you replace them with direction. The undisciplined mind reacts out of fear. The disciplined mind responds from strength, and that strength radiates in everything you do, even in silence. Every time you choose not to respond with anger, you rise. Every time you resist the urge to prove yourself, you grow. Every time you choose stillness over drama, you build something far more powerful than attention. You build character. And character doesn't need applause. It doesn't seek approval. It stands alone. It leads. It commands respect without ever demanding it. The most dangerous version of you isn't the one who shouts the loudest or fights for attention. It's the one who no longer needs to. The one who moves with quiet clarity. The one who doesn't need to win arguments because they've already won the war within. That kind of presence can't be faked. It comes only from deep internal discipline, formed in silence, forged through struggle, and solidified by choice. When your mind is disciplined, you stop being controlled by impulse. You stop needing validation. You stop chasing what doesn't feed you. And people notice. They may not understand it, but they feel it. They respect it. Because the energy of someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't crumble, it changes the room. It shifts the dynamic. It holds weight. And it never needs to explain why. This is who you are becoming. Not loud, not desperate, but composed, clear, intentional, respected. Not because you asked for it, but because you built it from the inside out. And the world can't ignore a mind that strong, a presence that grounded, or a silence that speaks louder than noise ever could. It's not supposed to be easy. Training your mind will break you before it builds you. It will test every weakness, every fear, every craving for comfort. Because the mind resists discipline. It fights against structure. It wants the path of least resistance. But the path of power has never been the easy one. It's the road where most give up, where distractions win, and where emotions take control. But not you. Not anymore. You've outgrown the noise. You're done negotiating with the voice inside that tells you to quit every time things get uncomfortable. This is where the shift happens. When you no longer let your feelings run the show. When you stop giving power to temporary emotions and start living from purpose. Feelings are fleeting. One moment you're motivated, the next you're tired. 1 second you're focused, the next you're scrolling, distracted, drifting. But discipline doesn't wait for feelings. Discipline acts, no matter the mood. It shows up. It repeats. It follows through. And when you do that long enough, you stop relying on motivation and start moving with intention. That's when the transformation becomes permanent. There's a deep kind of strength that comes from doing what must be done even when no one sees it. Waking up when it's hard, saying no when it's tempting, holding your tongue when your ego wants to scream. That's not weakness, that's power. The kind of power that doesn't shout for attention but grows in the shadows. That's how respect is built, day by day, decision by decision, in the moments no one claps for. You don't need applause for every step forward. You need silence. You need space to grow, to build, to sharpen your mind until it becomes unshakable. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen your identity. You prove to yourself that you're not ruled by emotion, that you can trust yourself, And that self-trust becomes your foundation. People sense it, they respect it. Because self-control is rare. Most people are owned by their reactions. You become different the moment you break free from that pattern. Not louder, not more aggressive, just more aligned, more grounded, more consistent in who you say you are and how you actually live. This is what it means to move in silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing to prove. You're not building your life for attention, you're building it for greatness. And that doesn't need a stage. It needs discipline. It needs focus. It needs you to hold the line when everything inside you wants to let go. So when it gets hard, stay focused. When it gets quiet, stay present. When no one claps, keep building. Because one day, the world will respect what you did in silence. But first, you must become the kind of person who respects it yourself. That begins with your mind. That begins now. Silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're focused. It means your energy is no longer wasted on convincing people to understand you. It means you've stopped trying to be seen and started working on becoming undeniable. The louder the world becomes, the more powerful silence gets. Because the world is full of noise, opinions, arguments, distractions, constant movement, but none of that noise builds anything real. It only feeds the ego. And ego will always beg to be noticed. But greatness doesn't beg. It builds. You were not born to chase attention. You were born to rise above it. The kind of rise that doesn't need to be announced. The kind that happens slowly, steadily, silently, through discipline, through clarity, through self-respect. And when you stop needing attention, you start earning something deeper, presence. You walk differently when you're not looking for approval. You speak differently when you're not trying to impress. You move differently when you know exactly who you are and you're not asking anyone to confirm it. The world watches more closely when you stop trying to be seen. That's the irony. The moment you detach from needing validation is the moment your power becomes visible. Not because you say more, but because you mean more. You're no longer reactive. You're intentional. And that makes you different. In a world addicted to urgency and instant gratification, your discipline stands out. Your silence cuts through the chaos. It speaks louder than opinions ever could. Every day, you have a choice. Feed your distractions or feed your purpose. Give in to comfort or grow through discomfort. Let your mind run wild or command it to obey you. One path leads to noise, the other to peace. But peace isn't soft. It's earned. It's forged in silence, carved through sacrifice, and built through thousands of moments where you choose growth over ease. That's the discipline most will never understand because they're too busy performing to pause. But not you. You've chosen something higher. And with that choice comes power. Because when you stay quiet, you're not giving up your voice. You're saving it for the moments that matter. You're preserving energy, protecting your focus, building something they can't see yet. And when it's ready, it won't need to be explained. The results will speak. The progress will speak. Your life will speak for itself. Respect doesn't come to those who demand it. It comes to those who command themselves. You can't expect others to value what you don't protect within yourself. That's why your silence matters. That's why your mental discipline is your advantage. The world is watching, whether you realize it or not. Let them see a version of you that doesn't chase, doesn't react, doesn't shrink. Let them see a mind that's steady, a presence that's powerful, a person who doesn't need to talk about what they're building because they're too busy becoming it. Stay quiet, stay focused. Let the respect find you. The most powerful thing you can ever control is your response. Not the world, not the people around you, not the noise, just your response. That's where your strength lives, in the pause between what happens and how you choose to react. That's the space where character is built, where weakness either takes over or discipline steps in. Most people don't even see that space. They're too busy reacting, defending, explaining, chasing. And in doing so, they give away their power every single time. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove your value to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's not power. That's emotional slavery. Real power is staying calm in the chaos, staying grounded when others are losing control. It's choosing clarity over noise, self-control over impulse, direction over distraction. The world will always try to pull you into its storms, but you weren't built to be tossed around. You were built to be the calm in the center of it. Discipline starts with awareness. Awareness of the thoughts that try to pull you backward. Awareness of the habits that drain your energy. Awareness of the emotional triggers that keep you locked in cycles that no longer serve who you're becoming. You can't lead your life if you're constantly led by your emotions. You can't grow into power if you're always shrinking for peace. The mind will fight you when you begin to take control. It will tempt you with comfort. It will beg you to react. But the longer you hold the line, the quieter those urges become. And that's when you begin to rise. Your presence becomes heavier. Your silence becomes sharper. Your movements become more deliberate. And people begin to notice, not because you shouted, but because you stop playing the game everyone else is stuck in. You stop explaining yourself. You stop announcing your plans. You stop chasing recognition. You let your life do the talking. You let your focus speak volumes. You let your consistency make the statement. This is what makes you powerful, not perfection, not popularity, but presence. The kind of presence that says, I've already done the work. I don't need your permission to walk in my purpose. That kind of presence can't be copied. It's built. Quietly, relentlessly, from the inside out, through discipline, through silence, through self-respect. And when you show up like that, respect becomes automatic. Not because you demanded it, but because you became impossible to ignore. Let others talk. Let them perform. Let them seek validation in noise. You're done with that life. You've outgrown the shallow need to be seen. Now you build in silence. Now you train your mind like a warrior. Now you walk with quiet fire. Because you understand something most never will. Respect doesn't follow noise. It follows mastery. And mastery begins when the mind is disciplined enough to stay silent. You don't rise by being louder. You rise by being consistent when it's hardest. When no one sees. When no one praises. When no one claps. Discipline isn't about public displays of strength. It's about private choices. The choices you make when no one is watching. When the pressure is invisible. When the temptations are subtle. That's where the real work happens. That's where the future is written. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. If you only move when it feels good, your mind owns you. If you only stay committed when others are watching, you haven't grown. Growth means showing up on the days when you feel empty. It means doing the work when the reward isn't immediate. It means learning to love the process so deeply that the outcome no longer controls your effort. That's what separates those who want change from those who create it. Wanting is easy. Wanting is emotional. But discipline is action without emotion. It's showing up even when your mind is screaming to quit. The noise in your head will get louder before it gets quieter. It will try to pull you back into patterns that kept you comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of transformation. You can't evolve in a space designed to keep you the same. You have to lean into discomfort. You have to invite the challenge. Because the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret is forever. And every time you choose silence over self-pity, action over excuse, control over chaos, you move closer to the version of yourself that no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about stripping away everything that never belonged. The doubt, the fear, the noise, the lies you believed about your worth. You are not weak. You are not small. You are not meant to follow the crowd. You are meant to lead your own mind, and leadership starts by mastering the space between stimulus and response. That tiny space where you decide whether you stay the same or rise into discipline. There is no shortcut, no hack, no way around the inner war. But there is a reward. And it's not just in what you achieve, it's in who you become. A person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't fold in silence, who doesn't react from emotion but responds from power. That version of you is already inside. It's just buried beneath the noise you've been listening to for too long. So let it go. Let the noise die. Let your habits sharpen. Let your focus deepen. Let your silence speak louder than your words ever could. Because the world does not respect volume. It respects value. And value is created through discipline, through self-control, through an unshakable mind. Discipline your mind. Stay quiet. And let the respect come, not because you chased it, but because you became worthy of it. You become dangerous the moment you no longer need attention to feel valuable. When you stop seeking eyes on you, and start turning your focus inward, something shifts. You begin to tap into a level of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't compete, doesn't beg. It simply is. Silent, steady, undeniable. That's what happens when you discipline your mind. You detach from the noise, and suddenly the noise loses its power over you. You're no longer moved by opinions. You're no longer pulled by comparison. You don't need the world to see your worth because you already do. Most people are loud because they're afraid of being overlooked, afraid of being forgotten, afraid that if they don't speak, they'll disappear. But the truth is, you don't need to scream to be remembered. You need to become the kind of person whose actions speak for themselves, and that only happens through consistency, through focus, through self-command. The strongest presence in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who sits quietly, unshaken, because they know exactly who they are and exactly where they're going. You have to understand what you're really chasing. It's not applause, it's not attention, it's self-respect. That deep, unshakable knowing that you can trust yourself. That you don't need the world to validate you, because you validate yourself through your discipline, your standards, your choices. That's the kind of respect that lasts. That's the kind of respect that draws others in without effort. Because people can feel when someone is aligned, when they're grounded, when their energy is clean. And that kind of presence can't be faked. It's earned, silently. You don't need to announce your growth. Let them notice the change in your energy. Let them feel the shift in your presence. Let them wonder how you became so calm, so focused, so in control. That's the reward of doing the inner work. Not that you become louder, but that you become clearer. And clarity is rare. In a world full of confusion, someone who is clear is automatically powerful. Discipline is not punishment. It's freedom. It frees you from the grip of your lower self. It frees you from emotional slavery. It frees you from the chaos of being ruled by the outside world. With discipline, you choose your thoughts, you control your reactions, you decide your direction. That's what makes you powerful. Not the volume of your voice, but the control of your mind. So keep building in silence, keep sharpening your thoughts, keep walking your path without the need for recognition. Because in the end, the world doesn't respect noise. It respects clarity, consistency, and quiet excellence. You don't have to announce who you are becoming. Just become it. Let your results speak. Let your energy speak. Let your discipline speak. And when it's time, let the world feel the weight of your silence. You don't rise by being seen. You rise by becoming solid when no one is watching. When you no longer need to be understood. When you no longer chase validation, that's when your strength becomes real. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop proving yourself, you begin reclaiming your energy. And with that energy, you begin to build something permanent. Not an image, not a reputation, a foundation. The kind of foundation that cannot be shaken by opinions, setbacks, or rejection. The undisciplined mind reacts to everything. It fights battles that don't matter. It wastes energy on people who will never change. It gets pulled into conversations designed to distract and destroy. But when your mind is disciplined, you learn the art of letting things go. You realize not everything needs your response. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every moment is worth your voice. Silence becomes your weapon. Stillness becomes your advantage. Because in silence, you conserve your power. In stillness, you grow your awareness. And with awareness, you gain control. Control over your focus. Control over your emotions. Control over your path. You don't need to be known. You need to be grounded. You need to become so centered that nothing outside you has the power to shake you. That's what real respect is drawn to. Not noise, not perfection, but presence. And presence is born through pain, through choosing discipline when distraction feels easier, through choosing growth when comfort calls louder. Every time you rise above your impulse, you rise in power. Every time you stay quiet when your ego wants to speak, you build presence. And that presence is felt, without words, without explanation. The most misunderstood part of discipline is that it looks boring, it looks simple, it looks quiet. But inside, it is the most intense, most transformative force there is. It rewires who you are. It redefines how you move. It teaches your mind that you no longer live at the mercy of feelings, opinions, or fear. You now live by choice, by standard, by focus. And that makes you unstoppable. You don't need to announce your every move. Let your consistency announce it for you. Let your silence become your signature. Let your discipline become the message. Because when you stop trying to be seen, you give yourself permission to truly grow. Growth that's not rushed. Growth that's not performed. Growth that's deep, internal, unshakable. And once that kind of growth takes root, the world starts to notice. Not because you forced it, but because you became undeniable. Stay quiet. Stay focused. Stay hungry, because the world doesn't owe you respect. It responds to energy. It responds to presence. It responds to those who master themselves first. The ones who don't need to talk about it, because their life is doing the talking for them. Be that. Build that. And the respect you once chased will follow without a word. The less you speak, the more weight your presence carries. Not because you're withholding, but because your silence is intentional. Your discipline creates tension. It creates presence. People begin to lean in, not because you ask them to, but because something about you feels grounded, controlled, certain. And in a world that is constantly loud and emotionally unstable, certainty is rare. Stability is rare. That's why it's powerful. It's not about pretending to be above it all. It's about actually being above the chaos that once pulled you in. It's about building yourself into someone who cannot be moved by the opinions of others or the unpredictability of circumstances. When your mind is no longer reactive, your life becomes deliberate. You stop living in response to pressure, noise, or expectation. You start living by principle, by self-command, by standards you set, not standards the world tries to impose on you. And when you operate from that level of clarity, something shifts. You stop needing people to agree with you. You stop chasing moments of validation. You realize you've already found what they're still searching for. Peace. Not the peace that comes from everything going right. The peace that comes from being right within yourself. Aligned, steady, focused. And that kind of peace doesn't need a platform. It doesn't need applause. It just needs space to grow. Quiet space. Intentional space. The kind of space that's uncomfortable at first, but sacred when you learn to live in it. Because that's where your discipline is built. Not in noise, not in chaos. In silence, in solitude, in the daily battle between who you are and who you're becoming. And every time you choose discipline, you take a step closer to that higher version of yourself. The one who doesn't break under pressure, who doesn't fold for comfort, who doesn't fall into emotional traps. You're no longer here to be impressive. You're here to be real, focused, solid. Your growth will intimidate the undisciplined. Your silence will confuse the loud. Your control will frustrate those who thrive on reaction. But that's not your concern. You're not here to explain yourself. You're here to evolve. And evolution requires separation from habits, from triggers, from the mindset that kept you needing permission to feel powerful. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them think you've fallen off while you're quietly building what they'll one day admire. You don't need their understanding. You need your alignment. You need your silence. You need your mind locked in on what matters most. Consistency, growth, self-respect. Those are your weapons now, not noise, not approval, just you versus who you used to be. Stay with it. Keep showing up. Keep choosing discipline over ease. Keep walking in silence until the results demand attention. And when that moment comes, you won't need to raise your voice. Your energy will speak. Your actions will echo. And the respect that once felt so distant will follow you without resistance. The only approval you'll ever need is the one you give yourself when no one is watching. That quiet moment when you know you didn't take the easy way out, when you chose discipline over distraction, when you kept your mouth shut even though your ego begged to speak. That's where your self-respect is forged, not in public praise, but in private victories, in the battles no one sees, in the habits you protect, in the standards you uphold when it would be easier to let them slip. That's the kind of self-respect no one can give you and no one can take away. You've learned that not every fight deserves your energy. That silence doesn't mean surrender, it means mastery. You've learned that you don't have to explain your growth to anyone who's not growing with you. And because of that, you've become dangerous in the best way. Unmoved, calm, focused. While others exhaust themselves trying to be heard, you conserve your energy for what matters. While they seek to impress, you seek to improve. While they perform, you prepare. That's what separates you now. When your mind is calm, your decisions become sharp. When your emotions are under control, your direction becomes clear. You stop needing to force outcomes. You stop chasing what isn't meant for you. You start creating results from a place of strength instead of struggle. This is the power of inner discipline. It simplifies everything. It eliminates noise. It reveals truth. You begin to see that most of the chaos in your life was never caused by others. It was the result of your own uncontrolled reactions. And now that those are no longer leading you, you move with purpose instead of panic. There is no applause for this kind of growth, no spotlight, just results, quiet ones at first, subtle shifts, fewer regrets, more peace, more control. And over time, that quiet growth becomes unshakable confidence, not the loud kind, not the arrogant kind, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't need to speak unless it chooses to, the kind that carries weight without asking for attention. That's the version of you that's being built now, one disciplined thought at a time. You don't need to rush. You don't need to explain. Just keep rising, quietly, steadily. Let the world see a different kind of strength, one that doesn't perform, one that doesn't pretend, one that's built on truth, forged in silence, and reinforced by action. Let them talk while you transform. Let them doubt while you stay consistent. Let them chase noise while you become the standard. Every time you stay silent when you could have reacted, you win. Every time you choose discipline over chaos, you rise. Every time you build in silence, you gain strength the world can't ignore. Respect is not given to those who demand it. It is drawn to those who command themselves. Keep going. The quieter you become, the louder your presence will echo. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. It's the decision to protect your future, even when your present wants comfort. It's choosing growth when staying the same would feel easier. It's silencing the urge to react, complain, or prove something to people who don't even matter. And once you understand this, your silence becomes your power. Your calm becomes your weapon. Your ability to not respond, not engage, not give your energy to what drains you. That's the beginning of true freedom, because the moment you no longer need to be understood, you rise above the noise that once controlled you. Most people live on emotional autopilot. Pulled in every direction by the opinions, actions, and expectations of others, they react before they think. They speak before they reflect. They defend themselves out of insecurity instead of standing firm in self-respect. But you've chosen a different path. You've decided to build from the inside out, to become so grounded that outside noise becomes irrelevant, so focused that distractions lose their appeal, and so disciplined that your feelings no longer determine your future. That's what separates the weak from the unstoppable. The world respects the one who doesn't flinch under pressure, the one who remains calm when everything around them is chaotic, the one who leads themselves first before they ever try to lead others. That kind of presence is rare. That kind of presence is earned. It doesn't come from saying the right words. It comes from living the right habits, from mastering your internal world until the external world has no hold over you. That's the level you're reaching. Slowly, silently, relentlessly. This is why your silence speaks so loudly, because it reveals control. It reveals strength. It reveals that you've stopped needing noise to feel significant. You've stopped using reaction as a form of expression. Now your power lives in what you choose not to say, not to do, not to entertain. That is the discipline most will never understand, and that's exactly why it works. You don't need to respond to doubt. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to shout your truth, you just need to walk in it, quietly, consistently, confidently. Because eventually, results speak louder than explanations ever could. Eventually, the life you build in silence becomes so undeniable that even those who doubted you will fall silent. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you proved yourself right. This is your path now, not one of noise but of substance, not one of reaction but of intention. You are mastering the art of staying still in a world addicted to movement, of staying quiet in a world that values loudness over wisdom. And in doing so, you're becoming something rare. Someone who doesn't just talk about discipline, but lives it, breathes it, embodies it. Keep going. Keep building. Let the quiet sharpen you. Let the discipline define you. Respect will follow. It always follows the ones who master themselves. There comes a moment when you stop needing permission to become who you were always meant to be. You stop asking for approval from people who haven't done the work themselves. You stop shrinking to fit into conversations that don't deserve your presence. The more disciplined you become, the less interested you are in being seen. You start to crave peace over popularity, growth over validation, mastery over attention. That shift is where real transformation begins. Because when your actions are no longer driven by applause but by purpose, you begin to access a deeper level of power. Silence trains your mind to listen before reacting. It teaches you to be still long enough to think clearly. It builds the gap between emotion and decision. That gap is where power lives. It's where your future is protected. Most people give up that space because they haven't learned to sit in discomfort. They speak to escape it, react to avoid it. But you're not most people anymore. You've chosen to be the one who doesn't run from discomfort but faces it with discipline. You let it teach you. You let it refine you. You let it strengthen the foundation of your character. When you no longer chase respect, it comes to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. People feel the difference. They sense the strength in your restraint, the wisdom in your silence, the confidence in your calm. You've stopped trying to impress, and now you're starting to influence without saying a word. That's what discipline creates. A presence that speaks louder than any performance ever could. A presence rooted in truth, not ego, in control, not chaos. And that kind of presence always earns respect, because it commands it without effort. Every time you choose discipline, you move closer to the life you were meant to live. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to win battles that cost you your peace. Instead, you win by mastering yourself, by becoming sharper, clearer, stronger. You train your mind to think long-term, to sacrifice the comfort of now for the power of later. And that mindset is what separates you from the masses. It's what creates leaders, not followers. Builders, not talkers. You are not here to react. You are here to rise. Quietly, consistently, without needing anyone to notice. Because the moment you stop needing the world to see you, the world starts watching. Not because you asked it to, but because your discipline forces it to. You've become undeniable through your silence, your consistency, your inner work. And while others chase attention, you're building legacy. Stay focused, stay grounded. Let your actions echo louder than words ever could. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are grounded in discipline and driven by purpose. Keep becoming that, keep mastering that. And you'll never need to ask for respect. It will find you, quietly, inevitably, and completely. Most people live in reaction. They wake up already behind, already anxious, already distracted. Their minds are pulled in 1,000 directions before the day even begins, and that chaos becomes their default state. They can't hear themselves think. They can't make decisions from clarity. They respond out of habit, not intention. But when you discipline your mind, everything changes. You don't wake up to survive the day. You wake up to command it. You no longer exist in reaction mode. You move with precision, with purpose, with quiet strength that doesn't waver. You've trained your thoughts to serve you, not sabotage you. Your inner world is your true battlefield. That's where real victories are won, not in public but in private. Not in what others see but in what you do when no one's watching. It's the quiet moments where you choose to keep going, the decision to stay focused when distraction calls your name, the refusal to feed into negativity or gossip, the discipline to hold your tongue when anger rises. That's where greatness is built, not with noise but with self-control, because when you rule your mind, you rule your life. And those who can't control their thoughts will always be controlled by circumstances. Respect begins where your self-mastery starts. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You prove it to yourself every time you follow through, every time you stick to your standard, every time you say no to what weakens you and yes to what grows you. That's how inner respect is born. And once you respect yourself, the world reflects it back to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you've become someone who naturally attracts it. You've stopped asking, and now it's given, quietly, consistently, authentically. The real test is when no one is clapping, when no one is cheering, when no one notices your effort. Can you keep going? Can you stay sharp? Can you stay focused when the spotlight isn't on you? That's what separates those who succeed from those who start and stop. The ones who last don't need attention to stay committed. They're driven by something deeper. Discipline is not about motivation. It's about responsibility. Responsibility to your future. Responsibility to your higher self. It's about becoming the kind of person you promised yourself you'd be, even when it's hard, even when it's silent, even when no one sees. Your strength doesn't need to be loud. Let your results speak for you. Let your peace be your proof. Let your growth become the statement. That's how you earn respect in the most powerful way possible, by becoming undeniable. Not through talk, but through transformation. Keep refining, keep rising. Keep choosing discipline over ease, silence over noise, focus over distraction. Every moment you do, you're becoming the kind of person others look up to without you ever needing to say a word. That's real power, that's real respect, and it's already within you. Now it's time to keep building it, relentlessly, quietly, completely. Most people have been taught to chase attention, as if being seen is the highest goal. But there is something far more powerful than being seen. It is being respected. And respect is not earned through noise. It's earned through consistency, through discipline, through becoming a force that moves in silence. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to improve, everything shifts. Your energy is no longer scattered trying to gain approval. It becomes focused, grounded, and powerful. You begin to build a foundation within yourself that no one can take away. A calm mind, a strong will, and a clear direction. True discipline doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't brag. It proves. You don't need to announce your every move when your actions are already speaking louder than words ever could. You don't need to justify your silence. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you're too focused to be distracted. Too intentional to waste time explaining yourself to people who wouldn't understand your vision, even if you did. That's strength. That's control. That's a rare kind of presence that people can feel without needing words. The more disciplined your mind becomes, the less reactive you are. You stop responding to every opinion, every slight, every criticism. You understand that not everything deserves your energy. Not every battle is yours to fight. You rise above the noise because you know who you are. You know what you're building. And the louder the world becomes, the quieter you grow, because you've trained yourself to stay rooted in purpose. That's where peace lives. That's where power is built. You don't rise by getting louder. You rise by getting clearer, stronger, and more aligned with what truly matters. People may not notice at first. They may not understand the shifts you're making. But over time, your discipline will create results they can't ignore. Your silence will begin to echo louder than their noise. Your calm will outlast their chaos, and your focus will put you in rooms where noise never could. This is how you become untouchable, not by outshouting others, but by outlasting them. Not by proving yourself to everyone, but by becoming undeniable to yourself. You don't need recognition to be great. You don't need permission to evolve. All you need is a decision to quiet the world and listen to your own standard. A decision to stop seeking and start becoming. Because the most powerful version of you isn't loud. It's precise, it's grounded, it's unshaken by opinions and immune to distractions. The most powerful version of you is built in silence, fed by discipline, and sustained by an inner fire that doesn't burn out. That version of you is already waiting. All it needs is your commitment, your patience, your refusal to quit. Keep building in silence. Let the results do the talking. Let respect follow you, not because you asked for it, but because you became the kind of person who naturally commands it. Silence is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's a sign of inner mastery. When you no longer feel the need to defend, explain, or perform, you've taken your power back. The undisciplined mind screams for attention, constantly proving itself to people who aren't even paying attention. But the disciplined mind has nothing to prove. It's too busy building, too steady to be shaken, too focused to be fazed by noise. You become dangerous the moment you stop reacting and start responding with calm, calculated clarity. That's the energy that commands respect without ever needing to demand it. Most people waste years trying to be heard, when the real power is in learning how to listen, first to yourself, your own thoughts, your patterns, your emotions. That's where discipline is forged, not in public victories, but in private self-awareness. You begin to recognize which thoughts are worthy of your attention and which are just distractions in disguise. You learn to separate your goals from your impulses, your truth from your fear. You take back control of your emotional state. And that's when the transformation begins. Not on the outside, but from within. Because discipline isn't just about doing hard things. It's about doing the right things, consistently, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. It's about showing up for yourself when it's inconvenient. It's about creating a standard that you refuse to drop, no matter how loud the world becomes. That's what builds self-respect. And when you respect yourself deeply, others can't help but feel it. You won't need to chase validation. You won't need to beg for attention. Your presence will speak louder than your words ever could. There's a different kind of confidence that comes when you know you can rely on yourself. Not just sometimes, but always. When you trust your own consistency. When you've proven to yourself, over and over again, that you won't fold under pressure. That you'll stay calm when things get hard. That you'll do the work even when no one claps for you. That kind of inner strength becomes unshakable. It becomes your foundation, and people will feel it the moment you walk into a room, not because you announced yourself, but because you didn't have to. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about superiority. It's about self-mastery. You don't need to be louder. You need to be more aligned. You don't need to control others. You need to lead yourself. The more disciplined your mind becomes, the more effortless everything feels. Decisions become easier. Distractions become irrelevant. Respect becomes automatic. You no longer chase outcomes. You attract them, not by force, but by becoming a person of undeniable energy. Quiet. Intentional. Relentless. That's the real edge. That's the version of you that doesn't burn out because it's not fueled by noise, it's fueled by purpose. Keep sharpening your mind, keep holding your standard, keep building in silence. Respect is already on its way. There's a shift that happens when you stop seeking comfort and start seeking growth. The minute you stop trying to make life easier and begin trying to make yourself stronger, everything changes. Because growth doesn't come wrapped in convenience. It lives in the discomfort you've been avoiding. It hides in the early mornings, in the disciplined choices, in the difficult conversations you've been putting off. Growth demands that you outgrow who you used to be, that you let go of excuses, release the need for approval, and step into the responsibility of becoming everything you know you're capable of being. You're not meant to stay the same. The resistance you feel, that's the old version of you trying to survive. But you're not here to survive, you're here to evolve. Every time you choose growth over comfort, discipline over impulse, and focus over distraction, you are declaring to the world that you're no longer willing to be held back by your former limitations. You're choosing to stretch, to rise, to transform. And that decision, made consistently, is what separates those who settle from those who succeed. You become powerful not because life gets easier, but because you get better. There's a strength inside you that's been waiting to be activated. Not through motivation, but through repetition. It's not about how you feel today. It's about what you do despite how you feel. Mastery is built in moments of resistance, not inspiration. It's in the choices you make when nobody's watching, when your energy is low, when quitting feels tempting. That's where the real work begins, not in the highlight reel, but in the unseen hours where champions are born and mediocrity is buried. If you want to stand out, you have to do what most aren't willing to. And that begins with doing it anyway, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because pressure doesn't break you, it reveals you. It reveals how bad you want it, how committed you really are, whether your dreams are just wishes or non-negotiables. You don't need things to be easier. You need to become unshakable. You need to walk through resistance and prove to yourself that nothing external controls your internal fire, that no obstacle is stronger than your will to keep moving forward, that you will keep going not because it's easy, but because you refuse to give up on the person you're becoming. That's the real edge, not talent, not luck, but relentless consistency. Unbreakable self-discipline, the decision to become so committed to your vision that excuses no longer survive in your world. The world doesn't owe you ease. It gives you opportunity, disguised as adversity. And when you embrace that, when you stop running from the hard and start welcoming it, you rise, you level up. You earn the version of you you've always dreamed of becoming. Not by waiting, not by wishing, but by showing up again and again, until your actions align with your highest potential. The world will test you. It will throw distractions in your path, offer you shortcuts, tempt you with comfort, and whisper that you've done enough. But deep down, you know when you haven't. You know when you're holding back, when you're coasting, when you're playing small just to avoid the discomfort of growth. And you can't lie to yourself forever, because that voice inside, the one calling you to more, doesn't go silent. It gets louder. It aches. It burns. It demands you stop shrinking into the version of yourself that plays safe, and step boldly into the version that fights for what matters. You don't rise by accident. You rise on purpose, through clarity, through commitment, through the daily decision to show up, not because it's easy, but because you refuse to settle. You refuse to end the day knowing you gave anything less than everything you had. You refuse to become another person who traded their potential for comfort, because comfort will lie to you. It will say, you're fine where you are, but greatness will whisper, you were born for more. And if you choose to listen to that whisper, everything changes. Your habits shift. Your focus sharpens. Your energy aligns. And the world around you begins to respond to the fire within you. There is a warrior in your mind. And that warrior isn't fueled by motivation. It's fueled by purpose. Purpose makes you dangerous to every excuse, every limitation, every form of weakness you once tolerated. Purpose sharpens your mind when others are distracted. It strengthens your body when it's easier to rest. It anchors your soul when chaos surrounds you. Because when your life is built on purpose, you stop needing perfect conditions. You become the storm. You don't hope for strength. You develop it. You don't wait for discipline. You build it. You don't pray for clarity. You earn it by moving forward, even when the path is unclear. You can't keep waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a myth. The moment you move without it, you begin to separate from the average. You begin to outgrow the excuses that once ruled you. You begin to lead yourself with precision, with intensity, with non-negotiable standards that make progress inevitable. And in that process, you stop chasing motivation and become a force of it. Your presence becomes different. Your energy becomes undeniable. Because there's a different fire in those who train their mind to win before anything around them has changed. The ones who show up even when it hurts. The ones who refuse to bow to circumstance. The ones who rise, not because they're fearless, but because their vision is louder than their doubt. That's the edge you build, quietly, privately, relentlessly. And when it's built, it can't be taken. Because it's not something the world gave you. It's something you earned through grit, through sacrifice, through unshakable belief. And now it's time to live like it. Not one day. Now.